Hello there. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another LocalStack community event, possibly the last one for this year. I'm Hirsch from the LocalStack team, and with me we have Anka, Daniel, Gerda, and Waldemar, and Thomas joining all from various remote locations across the world to talk about LocalStack 3.0. Uh, so, yeah, I guess all of us are here. How is the day going for all of you guys?
Wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah,
Fantastic.
wonderful.
Good.
Uh, I guess Thomas did mention me about his heating situation. So how is that going in the office? Yeah,
No comment. I
no comment.
refuse to answer on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess what about you, get at Waldemar? How was your trip back from US to Switzerland?
Yeah, it's good. To be fair, going to the US felt quite natural. We always have so
Yeah,
many customers in the US, so I felt like I'm finally in my time zone as a usually evening person. So now I'm trying to find my groove again.
yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's been pretty
Cool.
intense. I think we're gonna share some updates about reInvent anyway later today, but it's been a blast. So
Yeah.
great to be back again and doing some deep work with the team.
Yeah, we have had 4 days of enough deep work at reInvent itself, like presenting some really awesome demos to all the customers over there and everything all together. But yeah, it's quite nice to be back over here. So yeah, welcome everyone once again. I guess our fun banter is over now. So let's jump into the main agenda. So thanks again for participating in this lazy month of December to talk about LocalStack 3.0. So LocalStack 3.0 is our third major release of LocalStack, which is a cloud development framework for building your AWS cloud applications locally. And we are just so excited to showcase all of the nice things that we have rolled out in this new major release. So just quickly pulling up the slides that we have for the day. So yeah, this isn't an official announcement because we made the LocalStack 3.2 release almost a month back. But yeah, with all the reinvent and all of the hustle that we have been doing on the sites, it just made it reasonable for us to have this community meetup just right now. So for this meetup, we have got Gerda, Waldemar, and Thomas, who will be presenting different demos and insights into what has gone into LocalStack as a product and what are some of the new and exciting features that we have in the core cloud emulator and the other feature sets that we have right now. Joining us for the first time in the community meetup, we have Daniel, who will be sharing his insights on the IAM policy stream and how you can leverage this for security testing in LocalStack, all happening on your local machine. We have Anka, who appears for the third time in our meetup, and she will be talking about chaos engineering. And yes, you finally get to see me hosting and moderating these meetups just like every time. Uh, cool. So we have a very simple agenda for the day. We have a very simple intro and welcome, and I guess we are just going through that. Next up would be the road to LocalStack 3.0, which will be taken up by Gerda, and she would be demonstrating the various things that we have rolled out in the product and how LocalStack has started evolving from just a core cloud emulator to a toolkit that every DevOps and software engineering team should have in their day-to-day development workflows. We have what's new in LocalStack, which I guess is a pretty ceremonial ritual that Thomas takes up every time. And then we have some really nice tech demos by Anka, Daniel, and Waldemar talking about different things that LocalStack can help you with in building more resilient and scalable cloud applications. And finally, Anka, from the DevRel perspective, would be sharing some of the new community updates, some new resources that you can use to get started with LocalStack in a more confident fashion. And just like every time, we are going to have a fun Q&A. And this would be almost at the end of this session. And we have a Slido link right over here. So you can just go ahead. You can enter this code right over here. Or else you can just go ahead and scan this QR code. This would be available to you in the YouTube live chat. And you can use this Slido to basically ask all of the questions that you might have about LocalStack 3.0 or just about any of the things that might come up with LocalStack in the future. So with that said, I guess I can hand over to Gerda, who will be taking up what exactly went into LocalStack as a product. So over to you, Gerda.
Thanks, Harsh. Yeah. So just want to give a very brief introduction basically into the history of LocalStack. And if we can just move to the next slide, please. Really just very quick. We basically, for anyone who has not been in the recent community events, we basically started in 2016 with first lines of code in the open source. And until 2020, we got a lot of engagements with our open source repos and the first products that we had put out there. So we really decided to build a team to scale this up. We had over 20 team members in 2020. We then released our version 1 official release of LocalStack in 2022. And now in 2023, we already are in our second major release. So basically 3.0 is the second major release that we're releasing in 2023, which is really exciting. We've seen constant community growth, have over 50,000 GitHub stars by now, over 20,000 Slack members in our Slack community, almost 500 contributors on GitHub, and basically everyone really very, very engaged with LocalStack, and the engagement really increasing, which is very exciting to see. If we maybe go to the next slide, I just want to give a quick introduction to what we have been doing very recently. So not only did we release version 3 of LocalStack last month, but we also joined our first AWS reInvent, which has been very exciting for the entire team. So AWS basically has this flagship event, the AWS reInvent, which happens in Las Vegas, always the week after Thanksgiving, where thousands of people from the AWS community really come together, which is a huge opportunity to connect, to learn from users, and to really see what the market needs. We've been there for the first time now with a booth, which was very, very exciting for us, huge learning. We had huge engagements. As you can see, we had one small, tiny space with one demo station, which was constantly overfilled. I kind of want to say thank you to our colleagues from Miro. When they left the venue, when everything was shutting down, we were kind of expanding to their booth to just do more demos in parallel, because there was so much demand and so many people really wanted to see the product, which was amazing to see. We got great feedback. We connected to over 10 AWS heroes and community builders. We had a couple of attendees take part in some challenges that we had going on, like a tech challenge that was going on even after reInvent, a daily quiz, a selfie challenge. So if next year you happen to be at reInvent, make sure to stop by our booth. We have amazing prices, we have some fun games, and we always do very popular demos. And next year we'll make sure to have a bigger booth so we can show more of the amazing product we're building. If we go to the next slide, please. And now after that, also just want to give a quick overview of what really leads our thinking when we build a product like 3.0. So we get a lot of feedback from our customers, and that feedback is extremely valuable, especially when we work with customers on an enterprise engagement. They give us very, very in-depth feedback, and based on that, we try to prioritize our product roadmap. So we have now seen a huge need for something like chaos engineering, as an example. So we've been working together with one of our top customers who's been with LocalStack from the very beginning. And now we put out a feature that basically lets you perform disaster recovery simulations and test things that you can't even test in real AWS. So you can perform things like DNS failover tests, you can simulate service failover tests, or you can even simulate an entire AWS region that is failing over, meaning you can even simulate an entire region outage of AWS, which is something that you can obviously not do in real AWS. So this is like one big bucket that we've been focusing on, and we're going to demo later on. Another thing that we heard from customers over and over is the importance of everything around security testing. So we put out our advanced security features, especially around IAM testing, which you will see later. So basically, we let you handle IAM roles, which are inherently very difficult to handle with our IAM policy streaming features. And we simplify the identification of the permissions you actually need to set, and basically also the enforcement very early on for your cloud applications. Another feature that's really interesting is ephemeral cloud sandboxes. So these are super lightweight, easy to set up. You can run your full local stack sandbox as you know it from local deployment, now also in the cloud instead of on your local machine. So you can have very short-lived deployments of local stack in the cloud, generate preview environments, maybe from your GitHub pulls, or you can run your entire tests, preview them, collaborate with your team members with advanced features like cloud pods, use local stack extensions, all the things that you already know from running local stack locally. You can now also do in very short-lived, easy to manage ephemeral cloud sandboxes, which is really, really exciting. And I also want to let Valdemar chime in here and tell you a bit more about additional emulators that we're especially building, like Cloudflare and Stripe.
Yeah, thanks. I think you already touched upon some of the exciting features, and we'll hear more from the team in this session. I think generally in 3.0 we had lots of enhancements in the core emulator. Thomas will also cover more in the next section. And then also we're really doubling down on additional emulators and extensions. So extensions is really a way to plug in additional functionality into LocalStack. And we've basically started building a registry of extensions where we plug in new emulators, like for Cloudflare, for example, for the Stripe API, and even going beyond that into something like data platforms like Snowflake. So we'll share a bit more about that later, also in some of the demos. But with that, I want to hand over to Thomas for some of the details of 3.0.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for giving a great overview of our road to 3.0 and how we prioritize and how we come up with our roadmap. It's really based on user input and feedback from the community. And just going into a little bit of detail of what we've been shipping with 3.0. So obviously the core cloud emulator, the AWS emulator that runs on your local machine that allows you to test all of your AWS applications locally is really still our main focus. And we've been shipping a lot of improvements and also all of the features around it that I'm going to go into a little bit. There's a wonderful blog post from our DevRel team and the engineering team putting together all of the information that you need to know on how to migrate, what changes to expect, and so forth. So if you want to get all the juicy details, then go to this blog post. I'm just going to guide you through some of the highlights. So again, the emulator and parity with AWS services is really our commitment and our core commitment. We want to make sure that your AWS stacks, whether it's Terraform or CDK or whatever it is you're using, it really works out of the box. And for that, we're focusing on some of the core services that we see people using and continuously improve the parity. And we're very happy to also rework some of the emulators that we have fundamentally to match them to AWS's behavior. And three emulators that we focus on in particular and that have seen major reworks and where you may see some changes are S3. S3 is now completely written natively in LocalStack. There are no third-party dependencies anymore. This has led to us actually spinning off a separate container image for S3. So you will see some more announcement and some more details about that. But essentially, there's a separate container image now that just contains S3. So we can see that so many people are using S3 day to day and just using S3 on its own. So we really want to enable those users and give them the opportunity to just focus on S3. So you'll find out more details about that in the upcoming days and weeks. Step functions has seen a big improvement over the past weeks and months. The team has worked very hard to get up to speed with step functions parity, and the new step functions provider is now active in 3.0. You may see some changes. please give us feedback on how that's working out for you. But you should see overall parity improvements there as well. And Elasticache has seen a big rework as well. So now you can actually correctly set up your Redis clusters, whether you're in single cluster mode or using replication groups with multiple node groups. LocalStack will now set up the cache cluster according to how AWS does it as well. So those are just some key highlights around the emulator. Some lesser known things that I want to spend some time on is our initiative to improve the networking user experience in LocalStack. We're continuously also improving the container runtime support, so you can run LocalStack on different container runtimes, whether it's Docker or Podman or Kubernetes, and your application components that run in the same container runtime need to be able to communicate with LocalStack. And historically, that's been a little bit tricky, and we're sort of unifying that. We're making that easier through a better DNS support, and everything goes through our canonical domain, localhost localstack.cloud. And for that, we've also been unifying some of the configuration inside LocalStack. So really, there was a kitchen sink of different environment variables that you had to know and tweak. And now it just boils down to 2 particular configuration variables that you need to know about, and you can read more about them in our documentation. But huge props also to the team to going through the changes, making LocalStack more streamlined for networking, and you should see improved support for all sorts of different networking scenarios. Around the emulator, also we're adding, as Gerta mentioned, more and more value around the core emulator as well. So one thing is we're continuously trying to make it easier for you to work with LocalStack. So there's, as you maybe found, the Docker desktop extension that allows you to manage LocalStack instances. But we also have superseded the previous LocalStack cockpit with a really polished and neat, streamlined LocalStack desktop experience. So you can download the desktop app from the Windows store. It's available for Mac OS and Linux. It's code signed, so it's all available on app stores and easily installable. And you can get the full LocalStack experience directly on your desktop. So again, we're adding more and more value around the LocalStack core emulator. Some of those things Gerta already mentioned, like the IAM policy generation. We've been working very hard to match IAM to AWS, so make sure that our IAM policy enforcement works in the same way as AWS. Daniel will show some of the features later. He's also the main author of our IAM implementation. And there's some exciting value add features around there that we're adding. Chaos engineering, again, there's a suite of features inside LocalStack core which relate to chaos engineering. You can do global cluster failover with RDS. We have fault injection simulator implementation that actually can do more than the one from AWS. We have a bunch of configuration variables for individual services to simulate disaster recovery and so forth. And we'll see some demos of that afterwards. And also 2 features in beta or preview right now, something that Gerta already mentioned, are the ephemeral environments, where you spin up LocalStack in a temporary sandbox that you can deploy your entire application to, and your entire team can collaborate in a preview environment. And then we also have CI projects and analytics. So if you use LocalStack in CI, we really want to make sure that you have a good experience with LocalStack and match your LocalStack runs, your CI runs to your LocalStack state and so forth. Okay, and with that, without further ado, I want to hand over to our excellent tech demos.
That sounds awesome. Thanks a lot, Thomas, for just walking us through all of the new things that are in the LocalStack 3.0. So with that said, I guess we have like a series of 3 tech demos that we are going to showcase. And I guess the first one we have is the IAM policy stream. So I guess I'm just going to hand over to Daniel to like maybe showcase the policy stream right over here and just walk us through all of the things about this particular feature and how it can benefit you in various security testing scenarios overall. So yeah, over to you, Daniel. Just take up the whole thing.
Yes, Gladly. Good. Yeah, thank you. First of all, why did we come up with this IAM policy stream idea? As most of you might know, writing IAM policies can be a real pain. It slows you down. It's not really fun to do, and they're sometimes a bit tricky to get right. And of course, if you want to deploy our tech stack to AWS, you want policies which conform to the principle of least privilege. So all our parts of our application should only be able to do what they are supposed to do, and should not be allowed to do anything else in case some component gets compromised for some servers or whatever. Also a good point is that when you learn a new service, or even if you're completely new to AWS and just getting started, IAM can be quite confusing. And it's not always quite clear why something fails. And sometimes errors are not even visible. And some integration, which is basically between AWS services, for example, just do not raise an error message. You could try to understand or try to debug, but it's just failing silently. And those are all things we aim or problems we try to ease with our new IAM features. And one of these is the IAM policy stream, which will mostly focus on the first 3 points here. And if we look a bit deeper into what we did with the next slide, please, then we can see that we basically designed the IAM policy stream as two features which work closely together. First of all, you can, with this feature, see what policies are required for certain requests. As you can see soon in the demo, then we can see that every request which needs a policy shows up in our web UI, and you can click on it and you can see the policy which allows that specific request, which is nice if you just want to know what policy is necessary for this specific action you're doing, right? But if you want to get better insight about a bigger part of the application, we also created an IAM summary, which basically summarizes all those policies generated, groups them per principal making the request, and you can just see which principal needs what permissions correctly. And all of that is accessed directly via the web. And so without further ado, we'll take a quick look at our scenario I'll be showcasing right now. It's very simple. If some of you already watched our YouTube video on this IAM policy stream, it will be very familiar. We have our SNS topic, we have a subscription, and the subscription to the SQS queue, right? So very simple setup, and let's dig right in. I will So you should see my screen. I've already started LocalStack in the background. How did I start LocalStack? It's nothing fancy or complicated. The only thing which differs from our default config is that I set enforce IAM to 1 here, so we are actually enforcing our requests. This is not necessary particularly for the IAM policy stream. You can also just enable it via the web application. You do not need to set this variable anymore, but for our showcase, it's very nice to actually see requests failing as well. So I'll set up my demo, and you can just see here, we are creating a topic, we're creating a queue, and then we're subscribing to the topic with the queue, right? Very simple. And at least if you're not familiar with the service, this might then be surprising. If you are familiar, of course, it makes sense. If I publish a message to the topic, right, I get a message ID. This is fine. And now I want to receive the message from my stream, right? And there is no message in the stream. Why is there no message in the stream, right? And this is the first thing. This fails as silently here as on AWS. Actually, if you look into the LocalStack logs, you can see that LocalStack actually hints you on the missing permissions as well. But this is not really the topic of this presentation. And as you can see on the left part of my screen here, we have some output on our IAM policy stream. And here we can see there is a send message call to the SQS queue. And if we look deeper into it, we can see here the request parameters, and here is our sum event. So it tried to send it to the SQS queue, but it failed. And why did it fail? Because we do not have the right permissions. And here we have the resource-based policy, which should be attached to this principle here, this resource here, which is our test queue. And you can just copy this here. Whoop. And we can just add it to our policy JSON here. It's just a text document to make handling easier. Then I will, just to be able to use the AWS CLI, I have to escape the whole thing, do that, copy this, and enter it here into our attributes JSON file, which I will simply use now with our setQ attributes. And with the setQ attributes call, I'll set a resource-based policy onto the SQS queue with the policy just copied from our policy stream. And now it's done, right? And I will try to publish another message. And I will try to receive another message. Receive message. And I got my message. And you can see here still all the calls. So this is the basic principle. LocalStack provides you basically with a template. You could use verbatim, or if you want to, you can modify it afterwards with special conditions you'd like to add. But it basically provides you with a template you can use as a policy for your resources. And this was basically the stream part we have, and then we have still the summary part. And you can see here is the resource basically. I worked as the root user. If you would work as an assumed role or as a user principal, then the right arm would be displayed here. You can see basically every, even though root would not need the permissions, but yeah. You can basically see here every action which has to be allowed basically for this principle to succeed if it wasn't root. And that you can also see the resource-based policy with the send message call here, which is required for our test queue, as you can see here. So this is the basic principle, generating the IAM policies necessary for our request and for your complete stack. You can also reset it if you, for example, do not want to have the setup methods here, but only your runtime permissions, the permissions necessary for your runtime and not for deployment or something. So yes, this is basically it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Daniel, for showcasing this really exciting demo. I guess Daniel also has a video with Nancy. So if you have missed that out, I have put that out on the YouTube live chat. So yeah, definitely go over there, check out the video. And yeah, maybe wait for another community event where I guess Nancy from our team will also be showcasing like more broader scenarios around security testing with LocalStack itself. So thanks again, Daniel, for taking out some time on this day in a really chilly afternoon, I would say. And with that said, I guess we can bring up Anka onto the stage to present some insights about the new chaos engineering features within LocalStack. So over to you, Anka. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. I am mainly here to give you an overview of chaos engineering with LocalStack because we have prepared, along with this release, some pretty complex user guides. And I would encourage you to go there and see the full story and do the experiments yourselves. And let's start off a bit slow. If you're not familiar with chaos engineering, I would define it as a method to enhance your system's resilience by deliberately introducing control disruptions to it. And based on what team you're part of, can we maybe go to the next slide? Chaos engineering can represent different things to people from different backgrounds. So if you're a software developer, you will probably want to focus on application behavior and error handling and error responses. If you're an architect, you'll concentrate on the strength of the system design. If you're part of the operations team, you will probably want to make sure that the infrastructure that you set up is dependable. So integrating chaos engineering tests early on in the development process, that's where you want to use LocalStack, will help you identify and mitigate potential flaws, leading you and your team to build a more robust system that can survive turbulent conditions and withstand any type of stress. Maybe we can move on to some examples that I had prepared in the slide. So if you're, say, a software developer, your focus is on building robust systems and you want to pay attention to application behavior and error management. And this is achieved by using the fault injection simulator, where you define experiments and add these controlled disruptions to your system. And in this example, you can see that we have a very simple architecture where you have an API gateway and two lambdas, each serving a post and a get HTTP method, and they basically connect to a DynamoDB database. And if you want to define experiments using the FIS service and target the product database in this case, you will see that very fast your system will fall apart. And the next slide will show you how you can have a solution for this this one. By introducing a topic and a queue and a separate lambda that will check if your database is available in case there are some outages. And I haven't seen this in the cloud in my previous job, but it was on-prem, and this is a very common solution because if you have a global system of logistics where you have requests even more often than every second, you want to make sure that your system is super resilient for these sorts of things. And I've seen a snippet on the AWS blog. You can see it on the next slide. That to make sure that your integration with DynamoDB databases works smoothly, you should take care of error handling in your application. And this is just as simply as using try-catch blocks or if-then statements. Another experiment you could try with LocalStack is for robust architecture. And we have such a demo in our user guides where you can test a Route 53 failover using, again, the fault injection simulator, where you have two availability zones. One is a primary, one is secondary, and you can take down the full primary zone and make sure that your application is still serving customers or any client that you might have beyond this Route 53. And it's up and running in any turbulent situation. Can we move on to the next slide. Okay, on top of this, we have some extra features with LocalStack that are completely new and completely different to what AWS might have to offer, because we have an outages extension that is basically an endpoint that you can easily define and communicate with, and define your outages there. This is particularly used for the operations team, making sure that their infrastructure that they deploy often is reliable. And if your systems revolve around Kinesis and DynamoDB a lot, you can also define some error probability by some configuration flags with LocalStack. And to top it off, the jewel of the crown would be the Chaos Engineering dashboard, which we'll have a look at right now. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I need to find the right screen where I have everything prepared. I guess it's visible now. Yes, I can see it. Okay, so we will have a look at the first scenario that I presented, where you have these two lambdas with the DynamoDB. Here is our Chaos Engineering dashboard, which you will find in the web app. And it's very easy to configure, and it provides a lot of options. You can see there is a 500 internal error per region that you can define. You can have service unavailable options, where you can define the service that you want to pretend it's unavailable in the region. You have full-blown region unavailability here. You can also define latency for certain regions. And the last two are the ones that I just mentioned, the DynamoDB and the Kinesis error probability, where you get a randomly injected provision throughput exceeded exception. So let's try out our application. LocalStack is started and our infrastructure is up and running. Let's see if I can save a product. Here I'm just using curl to call my API gateway, which is defined already. And I have an endpoint here for a product. This is just a random product in my payload. And I hope everything works as expected, because the demo gods have not been very kind to me today. Okay, so you can see that the product has been added or updated successfully. Based on ID, it will get updated. So here we want to look for DynamoDB. Oops. And the region is US East 1. And you can see our template for our fault injection simulator is defined here. You can also copy paste this, and if you want to use it separately using the AWS CLI tool, you can also do that. And let's start our experiment from the dashboard. And previously I defined a separate product here. This will have a different ID, and it will be called the ultimate gadget, unlike the special gadget. Okay, and you can see that the solution was already included in our architecture, where we handle this situation, and we get this response: a DynamoDB error occurred, the message has been sent to the queue. So from our post Lambda, it will just go to the queue, and it will sit there until the DynamoDB service is available again. So we can stop our experiment now, and we can use AWS local DynamoDB scan table name products to see if our products are both there. So now you can see that we have the initial product that we added, and the second one, and everything is good and resilient and it works. I guess that concludes the short demo. I highly encourage you to go check out the user guides where you can try very complex things. And back to you, Harsh.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Anka, for showcasing the demos. Fortunately, the demo got squared with you. So
yeah, they were on my side this one particular time.
yeah, awesome. So with that said, I guess I can invite the person who would be giving the final demo for the day, and that's Waldemar. So welcome, Waldemar, for the third and the final demo for the day. I guess you're just up to showcase the ephemeral instances and the subsequent application previews that we have lined up for the day.
Wonderful. Yeah, hopefully the demo gods are going to be with me as well. So Marty, okay, perfect. So you can see my screen. So great demo so far. Really great to see all the progress in different areas. Chaos engineering is one of the favorite topics we also presented at reInvent. The customers really loved it. And another thing that we're quite excited about, another feature, is LocalStack Cloud sandboxes. And I want to just spend a couple of minutes to talk about what this is all about. So basically, the concept of ephemeral LocalStack Cloud sandboxes is that we have a way to spin up temporary hosted LocalStack instances that you can use to test your application, preview any deployments, and really have the ability to share also any states that you're testing, share with the team members and get it reviewed. So the default way to work with LocalStack is still on your local machine in a Docker container. But we've seen that, in some cases, maybe Docker is not available on the local machine, or again, you might have a way to share your changes and have them reviewed by the team. And that's why we're offering this option as an alternative or an additional option for you to test your changes. So we'll go into that in a second. We'll also see how this nicely integrates with CI builds. It's a nice integration where for each pull request, for example, we can create previews that you can then take a look at, and these instances are up for a certain period of time and really facilitate working with LocalStack and previews. So these cloud sandboxes are accessible directly from the web UI, which we'll see in a second. There's a separate section here in the web UI that is around ephemeral instances. It's currently an alpha feature in the team tier, and we'd really love to get your feedback if you can give this a try and see if it works for you. And later in the year and next year, we're actually gonna fully make this generally available. Right now, it's an alpha preview stage. We will also see that this is kind of exposed in the UI as like each instance can then be interacted with. So in addition to your local LocalStack instance, we can then interact with the remote instance and have things like the resource browser, any extensions and status as well. And we'll see that in a second in the web UI. So with that, let me actually switch over to the web app. So I'm here logged in with my account in the LocalStack web app. And I'll just browse down here to the LocalStack instances section. So this is where usually we have our default instance, with our resource browsers. This is really connecting to my LocalStack instance running on my local machine. And now what we can do in addition is we can go up here to this ephemeral instances tab here, and we can go ahead and say I want to create a new instance test 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll just hit create here. And what's happening now is that in the background, we're basically spinning up an instance that receives an endpoint URL, right? So this is now a publicly resolvable endpoint URL that is going to be up and running for about an hour or so. And now we can interact with this instance without having to run LocalStack on the local machine. So let me just copy this URL, and I'll go here to my terminal. I'll stop the LocalStack container just for the purpose of the demo. And what we can do here is, let's just say we say export AWS endpoint URL equals this, right? So our new instance, we can just point this environment variable to the instance URL, and then we can interact with the instance just as we did with regular AWS commands. So we can do an s3 ls, for example, listing the buckets. Currently, there's nothing in there because it's a fresh instance. Then we can say we create a new bucket, and it's there. And you can see it's the same look and feel as against real AWS or against the LocalStack instance, but it's just this ephemeral instance there. So switching back over to the web UI, I can now go to the resource browser. So this is something that will be familiar to some or most of you, kind of this web user interface for different services. And let's go to S3 now, and we can see the bucket we just created before, test 1 to 3. We can actually also interact from it from here. So let's create another bucket here. So we now have 2 buckets in this instance, and I can do another ls here, and I can see it's been created. So again, a very easy way to spin it up. Zero install. You can, it's up and running within a second, and then you can start interacting and playing with it. The other cool thing I want to briefly showcase is how this sort of integrates with CI builds and also with cloud pods. So maybe let's take a look first at how this works with CI builds. So we've actually created a small project here, which you can also find in our developer hub and in the samples repository. This is a note-taking app that uses some Lambda functions, DynamoDB. It's a serverless application basically that has a bunch of Lambda functions and a web user interface that's just hosted in an S3 bucket. And we've created this application, and now one of our team members, Lucas, has created a pull request here against this repo to make a change. So basically, he introduced some new UI features with a dark mode toggle. So there's a bunch of changes in this file, in this pull request. We can see some dependencies have been updated, some UI changes were made. And this is now a very typical use case that somebody from the team would want to review these changes, right? And just take a look at what this looks like. And this is what we've done. So prior to this meeting, I've actually pushed a small test commit here to get the latest state of this PR up and running. And now we get this URL here as a comment on the PR directly, which we can now click on directly. And we can see that it actually spins up this entire application in the remote instance that's hosted here. And we can now interact. This is the cool light mode, dark mode that we've added. And we can create a new node saying awesome love 3.0. Create a new node here, and it's been created, right? So we have a fully functional app running in this ephemeral environment as a preview on the PR. And I can then also, take my notes here, add my pull request comments and say, I like this, or maybe we can make some changes on the UI. So a really nice way to interact and collaborate basically on your application previews. So this is one of the main features where we see ephemeral environments and cloud sandboxes being applied. And just to sort of take a step back and also again think about how this can also be used with cloud pods. As I mentioned, these remote instances can be used in the very same way as you would interact with a local instance. So let's just spin up a LocalStack instance here real quick. LocalStack start. So I'm starting up my LocalStack instance here. And we've prepared prior to this meeting a small sample application that is called a image resizer application. So there's yet another sample app that we have prepared in our developer hub. By the way, please go check it out. In our documentation, there's lots of great samples you can get started with and showcase how different patterns of the application development can work with LocalStack. So we've now injected this pod into our local instance here in LocalStack. And let me just quickly open that in the browser. So that is now a different URL. So we're adding, I think this is thanks. So this is a local endpoint now that says web app S3 localhost localstack.cloud, which again is now this entire cloud bot that it's been injected into my local instance. And I can now interact with it. It's basically an image resizer application. You can see we already pre-populated with some Pikachu data, and we can choose some more files here. Let me see if I can find some screenshots, something from DockerCon that we presented recently. And you can upload a file here, and then basically it creates a screenshot, a preview of this right here. Now, this was again all running locally, and I just wanted to briefly show now how we can deploy the same cloud pod into an ephemeral, into a remote instance, right? So again, going back to my terminal, I will stop LocalStack here, and then I'll run the same command, the same pod load command, but this time I'm pointing it at the remote instance. So the only thing we need to add here is localstack host equals, and then let me go back to the web UI, just copy paste the host name here. And then I can do a pod load. And now it's actually deploying the same pod against the remote instance. So again, you can interact with this remote instance the same way you would do locally. It says CloudPod has been successfully loaded. And now if we go back to our web UI, and I just again copy paste my endpoint here. Right. So now we're actually using the sandbox hosted version of this application. We can interact with it in the same way. And you can see it's a great way you can actually inject CloudPod states into remote environments as well and use that for example, bootstrapping your CI builds and testing. So again, this was a quick run through through ephemeral instances, something we're quite excited about and hope to get your feedback on. Please check it out in the team plan, and it's going to be soon going into GA, but for now, I'm happy to get your feedback for this alpha version. All right, handing back to Harsh and team.
Awesome. Thanks, Waldemar, for showcasing the exciting new features that I was unaware about. I still remember like we did this whole demo for ephemeral instances when I was repeatedly mispronouncing these as ephemeral, and then Benji from the shipyard team actually corrected me on that, hey, this is gonna be ephemeral. So that was a fun experience, and I never knew like we have these new config flags that just makes our life so easier. So yeah, thanks again for the whole demo over here. So yeah, handing back to Anchor to just quickly run through the new stuff around community and resources from the developer perspective and what we have been doing on this front as well to basically serve the huge community that we are growing right now. Anchor, I guess you're muted. Sorry to be that guy.
Sorry, it's always the case. I just wanted to say a few things about the community and the community love that we get, because my 1-year anniversary working for LocalStack is coming up. And you can see in the next slide that we get a lot of love from different users. Some of them are actually companies, so those are the ones we have integrations with, but nevertheless, we're very appreciated. And we can have a look at what community was for us in the past year in terms of numbers. We had 3 in-person community events under our own brand in collaboration with Docker, MongoDB, Labyrinth Labs, AWS. We had the honor of presenting at 10 conferences, including DockerCon, EuroPython, Spring.io, We Are Developers, all the good and the big ones. We had 2 webinars with Lambda Test and Lumigo. We had 7 user group meetups that we were invited to. We participated in a bunch of AWS summits across Europe and the Middle East. And most importantly, our meetup community has seen a 145% increase in size. And in terms of resources, there is a lot of reading material for you out there, so you can check it out. We have 22 new blog posts that have already received a lot of views. The Developer Hub has been launched earlier this year. Valdemar already mentioned that. And we have some tutorials and a lot of sample applications. The LocalStack Academy currently has 2 lessons and more in the pipeline. There were a lot of collaborations from the DevRel side with Docker, AWS, Cloudflare, Atomic Jar, Pulumi, Lambda Test. And we have also done a lot of case studies with some of the companies that are really big fans of LocalStack. So if you're interested in how others are using it, you can go have a read on our blog. And the last piece of art that I would like to share to you is pretty much our entire team out there being hardworking and creative and interacting with the community as much as possible, either online or offline. I just wanted to highlight this because everybody's giving it, 150%. So kudos to everybody. And that was the little update I wanted to give you from the community side.
Awesome. Thanks again, Anka, for just speed running through the whole thing, because we are almost on time. So maybe we
Yeah,
can jump on the
perfect.
last part of this whole session. So yeah, I guess over to you, Thomas and Waldemar, for leading the way of what does the future of LocalStack look like. So yeah, over to you.
Thanks, Harsh, and thanks, Anka. It's great to see just the community engagement, and it's so fun working with everyone. And we have a great team, we have a great community. We just have fun with each other, and it's great to see these pictures and kind of take a step back and also take a look at the non-technical things that we're doing. So yeah, just a brief overview of what's ahead. So just a sneak peek into our roadmap. I'm just going to briefly talk about the roadmap for LocalStack Core, and just give you a brief taste of what's to come. So definitely, as I said in the beginning, we're committed to continuing to improving AWS parity. We really want you to be able to download LocalStack and just run your Terraform, CDK, CloudFormation, Pulumi, whatever app against LocalStack, and it should just work. You should have an excellent experience, and AWS parity is core for that. So our commitment is to continue to improve that, continue to improve also our internal processes to be able to better create parity with AWS and so forth. So you'll continue to see improvements, and sometimes you will notice that when we update things, you may experience some hiccups with your current setup. Oftentimes that's because we fix parity issues, and then you'll notice that actually your application was working with an emulator that wasn't behaving exactly like AWS. So look out for that. Certainly, we're going to also improve some of the emulators that we have. You can see the level of sophistication within the individual emulators just increasing. So, we're moving way past mocking. We're moving way past just the normal API requests and responses. We're running your Lambdas, we're running your ECS tasks. And some of those, Lambda is a good example where we did a big iteration over just, really making sure that you have all of the features that AWS has on your local machine. And now we're going to do the similar iterations with other services. So CloudWatch is certainly something where we've seen, okay, we're still in sort of a mocking phase with CloudWatch, but now that we're integrating other services, we're running into some scalability issues with storing everything in memory and things like that. So we're upping the level of sophistication in that service with a major rework. And some of the compute layer we're going to rework and rethink. So ECS and EKS and the services around that. So ALB so you can actually test things like load balancing between ECS instances and routing and things like that. So that's the sort of the next evolution of some of these providers that we'll introduce in the next months. Again, a big topic was chaos engineering, and chaos engineering is more than just the fault injection simulator. It's really a suite of features within different services. I mentioned in the beginning, RDS, global cluster failover, and we're going to introduce this for more services. You're going to be able to test, ECS task failures. You're going to be able to test Elastic Cache cluster failures and failover scenarios and things like that. See how your application behaves in these disaster recovery situations. So DR testing is a big topic for all sorts of different services, and you'll see more improvements there. And then we are going to introduce new services. Some of them are very, very complex, and we need to put in a lot of effort into providing those. But two that are specifically on our roadmap right now are AWS MemoryDB and AWS DMS, so the database migration system. And you should be seeing some announcements in the next 3 to 6 months around there. And there's a lot of other features. We listen to the community, so if there's something that you really need and want, please approach us, and we'll see whether we can fit it into our roadmap that's coherent with this strategy that I presented. So that sort of for LocalStack Core, for the core emulation product, and for beyond the emulator and all of the value add features that we're adding around the core emulator, I'm going to hand over to Waldemar to present.
Awesome, thanks, Thomas. Yeah, so as Thomas mentioned, like the core emulator is really our like crown jewels, the bread and butter of everything we do. We want to make it as seamless as possible. Any application stack that you provide, any Terraform CDK should just deploy seamlessly with best performance, best parity. And then sort of beyond the emulator, we're increasingly focusing on sort of the broader picture of how can we support the end-to-end development lifecycle of your teams, right? So this really spans from the first lines of code written on your local machine, testing and like these quick cycles with your lambdas and mounting code and so on, just these quick local iterations, all the way to CI builds and preview environments, as we just saw before. In that realm, we also focus a lot, have been focusing and will continue to focus on this ecosystem of tools, right? Making sure that we have good integrations with all the way from local IDEs, making sure that you can set your breakpoints in your favorite IDE, all the way to all these infrastructure as code tools that we natively integrate with, and then also application development frameworks. If you think about front-end frameworks, for example, where you can then deploy your changes and preview them and so on. So really focusing on this platform aspect is something that we think a lot about, and it's something that will define also the roadmap for the next year and onwards. We're also doubling down on extensions. So extensions is a great mechanism for plugging additional functionality into LocalStack, we've been bootstrapping the extensions with some initial ones that we've built. For example, the outages simulation. We have emulators for Stripe and a few other systems. We do have some community contributions now as well, which is something we're quite excited about. So there's an extension called Auth-res and an IAM, an access management system. And we're also experimenting with data platforms. So we have started spiking out a Snowflake emulator. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to us. It's currently still in beta state. But kind of extensions really gives us a way to sort of expand the scope of the offering, of the product offering, and venture into new cloud providers, new service offerings, but also augment the existing LocalStack emulator with additional functionality. So that's something we're going to double down on. And then again, also as mentioned previously, as part of the end-to-end lifecycle, CI builds is a pretty central piece. So we want to continue investing in more debuggability and insights into your CI builds. Commercializing on cloud-pods, which is already a great way to store the snapshot of the state of an instance, and then also providing some detailed telemetry and insights into your CI builds for even better debugging and getting this really sort of integrated experience. Finally, that's something that we get asked a lot in these community meetups and other events. What does life after AWS look like, and when are you going to move beyond AWS? I think it's maybe a bit too early to announce at this very stage, but we certainly are plans are getting more concrete to tackle additional cloud providers like the hyperscalers like Azure, potentially GCP. So stay tuned here. We don't want to commit to it right now, but certainly something that will be coming in the roadmap also for next year, and lots of exciting things to come there as well. So definitely looking forward to getting your feedback. We have also our Discuss forum. Please participate in the discussions in our Slack channel, which is very active, on GitHub if you have any particular issues with services. So please do get involved. And with that, I think we have maybe a couple more minutes for Q&A, if we have some. To you, Harsh.
Definitely. So we do have a lot of interesting questions that actually came up, but again, I guess I will just add everyone to the stage over here. So we have Anka and Daniel. I guess, Gerda as well. So thanks again for taking some time out, bringing all the insights, really interesting demos to this particular meetup. And with that said, I guess we do have a few interesting questions that I guess we can take it up right now. So is chaos engineering in pro? Some pages are marked as enterprise. So something that maybe you want to highlight, Waldemar?
Yeah, so as mentioned, the chaos engineering overall is a pretty comprehensive product offering. One sub aspect of this is the fault injection simulator, which again has different types of experiments built in, and a small subset of that is provided in Pro, but the more comprehensive offering is actually part of our team and enterprise offering. But if you're interested in some more details, then please do reach out. Again, with extensions, we have a way to also do some custom development for your particular use case there.
That makes sense. I guess the next questions are more for Daniel because he's the IAM guru. Like he knows like how this whole thing is basically working out.
Yes, so how is LocalStack's IAM architected? Do you have a list of all compatible roles and policies? I'm not sure what a list of all compatible roles and policies would look like. Basically, what we have is we have a mapping in the background which maps basically SDK operations to the required actions with templates basically on how to construct the ARM for the resource and stuff. So this is how we work with, how our IAM works. We also have adapters into the services to get more information to the IAM engine, which runs basically in front of all services, and which then can basically query services for additional information. Yes. And this basically ties in nicely with the next IAM question: how reliable is it to use generated IAM in production? For our bigger services, it should be very reliable. Basically the policies which are generated should be pretty much working in AWS. There are certain things you have to adapt. Maybe, for example, if you have the access policy should also be minimal. There are certain things you have to adapt, like account IDs or basically resource names. If your stack does not match, if your stack resource names do not match up the ones in production and stuff, or if there are auto-generated IDs generated by AWS, we of course cannot predict those IDs, so you would have to adapt them in your policies then. Yes, that's basically.
Awesome. I guess we do have an interesting comment about ephemeral instances, like life comes full circle after all, like cloud to local and now back to cloud. I guess this actually explains ephemeral instances quite a lot. But yeah, we do have like two interesting questions over here. So we have one on the slide and the other one on the YouTube live chat. So how many free hours of ephemeral instance do we get? So Waldemar, would you like to take that up maybe?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we're basically still in the process of packaging this offering as an actual product. So far, as you may know, we have been steering away a bit from any usage-based pricing, but in this case, obviously, this maps directly to some infrastructure costs. So there will certainly be a small free tier included, and then sort of from the team and plan and above, we'll also have some pricing around that. So stay tuned. Probably Q1 next year, we'll have some more details.
Awesome. And there was another question on the YouTube live chat. It's like, where do these ephemeral instances live? Like, what's the pricing model for using these? I guess you already answered the question about the pricing model because, yeah. But where do they exactly live? I guess I do know the answer, but I would just let you take that up. Waldemar, are you still there?
I'm sorry, I just missed what you said. Can you say it again, please?
Where do these ephemeral instances live?
Right. Yeah. So these ephemeral instances are so we're working with some partners there. So in general, we have some more details if you're interested in sort of the security aspects of this. They're basically hosted instances that are managed by us. We obviously make sure that there is isolation and full security around these instances. But happy to work with your security teams on the details of this. But generally speaking, it's a hosted environment in a cloud hyperscaler.
Awesome. That makes sense. I guess Daniel wanted to put up one of the points about the live policy stream. So yeah, maybe Daniel, you can take this up.
Yes, I want this mapping, which is basically our backend of IAM. I want to have a huge shout out, general to Ian McKay in particular about his work already with an IAM dataset he published on GitHub, which is basically the source of everything. It's partially grabbed from the AWS documentation and partially just manually curated about all the mappings between SDK operations and actions. So huge kudos and thank you that we can use it.
Awesome. Yeah. And a general shout out to all of the contributors that we have. I guess we have already touched 500 contributors across various projects in our GitHub organization. So yeah, kudos to everyone who has taken time out, who has contributed to our project and who has made it an astounding success. And this is why we have about 50,000 GitHub stars right now. Yeah, we have been slacking off on the announcement, but yeah, definitely stay tuned for the announcement along with some really great announcement that would really shift the game for a lot of people who are using LocalStack for non-commercial purposes. I won't tease it any further. I would let the news to go out the next month for everyone to know about this. Yeah, with that said, I guess the Q&A is over. We definitely had more questions, but you never actually see that. So just 5 minutes before Slido was having an outage, and because of this, we lost 4 to 5 questions right over here. But yeah, we definitely had quite a good number of questions. We definitely had a lot of insights that we got out of this. So thanks to everyone who joined our community event, the last one for this year. We hope you have a great Christmas and a New Year, and we hope you take some time out, really have some fun and chill out in your life, and stay away from all of the local cloud development paradigms. After all, you're obviously gonna jump on that the next month or so. So yeah, take some time out for yourself. So with that said, I guess I can bring my joke charade to an end. Have a great rest of the day, everyone, and we'll see you in the next month.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.